guys, I'm nervous. If you're a Patreon for James, one of my favorite indie horror game developers, you get early access to his newest releases. And also, I get to release a video on it a day before it actually releases. So if you're watching this on day one, you can play this tomorrow and no earlier. And I'm kind of cool about that. Anyway, before we proceed, kindly like and subscribe. So this is the second game in Yames's Secret Games catalog called Growing My Grandpa. And he's been teasing us for ages because he kept making it bigger and bigger and better. And I have very high hopes for it. Let's see what we got here. This game is designed to be played with a mouse. The input required of you is based around clicking the mouse buttons. The right mouse button will change the cursor image and function. Only when pointing, indicated by the extended index finger, can you, the player, interact with certain menu buttons and prompts. The second cursor mode is indicated by the cursor's image featuring a hand extending all fingers. This mode concerns interacting with objects inside the world mainly. Picking up an object and moving it into another position. Begin. Week 1. I excused Adrienne during music class today and spoke with her about her recent string of demerits. It was our first time meeting outside of our quarterly evaluations, and I believe it went well. I can certainly understand Mrs. Richardson's classroom observations concerning Adrienne's emotional state. She was, of course, intensely shy when we first met. As I understand it, she is similarly withdrawn in her classroom activities and only speaks or acts when she absolutely must. Some things she simply will not do. Instead of participating in mandatory group activities, she will sit alone and accept that she will receive a demerit. Before the meeting, I read Mrs. Richardson's parent-teacher report, which allowed me to estimate some about Adrienne's home life. The parents are well educated and come from a prestigious background, but they lack time to properly nurture Adrienne. She is often alone, and when she is not, the parents seem to not understand the importance of warmth and affirmation when dealing with someone so young. Having two parents of this reserved and icy temperament exacts an inhibition in a child. The child's imagination is subdued, but only ostensibly, for it eventually finds its way into regular life. I surmised that I would be able to reach out to Adrienne by way of make-believe. Okay. Spooky. How are you liking your new house? You've told me you used to live close by, but it still can be a big adjustment. A new room, a new school. The basement. I like that. The basement? Yeah, well, there's a lot of cool stuff. Mom and Dad sent me down there. Your mom and dad made you go? Yeah, but there's lots of cool stuff. Well, that's not why they sent me down there, though. Why did they send you down there? Fighting? They were fighting, shouting. I came in to help and they shouted at me. They said, go clean up downstairs, so I went. That sounds tough. Do they fight a lot? No. Well, It's all right, Adrienne. Maybe you can tell me more about the basement instead. Okay, well, it was weird at first, the stuff down there. But cool. I found something living, sort of. That's very interesting, Adrienne. Please tell me more. By indulging her in her fantasies and stories, I was to glean more of an understanding of Adrienne's anxiety surrounding her home and parents. The symbols of Adrienne's story seemed to carry their own traumatic weight, and her exploration of the basement may very well be a vehicle for the conveyance of her anxiety. Whatever might come of our next meeting, whether she will engage in similar make-believe, I will set down her story here. Adrienne's story begins with her delving into the basement with a trash receptacle and the goal of cleaning up. She discovered one of the walls was covered in plastic bags. She went to investigate, intent on tearing away whatever they covered. Oh my god, these look so cool. Trash bags. What am I looking at? Slugs? Are we just cleaning up now? Upon removing the plastic trash bags from the wall, she noticed their interior lining was covered in glass. Like a window, I offered. No, she said, like a mirror. Reflecting inward towards the animal they covered. I gently asked her what animal exactly this was. Here is where the material reality of the story took a turn for the explicitly fantastic in imagery. Fucking cool. Upon her discovery of it, at her gaze, it grew, or extended. Its shaggy-haired self, hair like fur, like a dog, I offered. No, she said. Not the fur of a dog, nor the hair on her head. It grew out towards her, the animal's hair reaching out. It was hard, standing almost straight. Like the hair on a brush, a bristle, I offered. Yes, she said. She was very afraid at first, but then very curious. I asked her what else was in the room. More things hidden away, she said. Things of Grandpa's as well. First, she found a hidden passage under the stairs. Inside were strange dolls, magic objects, naked, faceless figures. I heard these cryptic utterances and merely nodded. In order to keep the game of make-believe going, I only pressed for details where I thought necessary. The faceless dolls could be a simple metaphor for the anonymity she feels in her own home. The hidden passage, I am unsure of what to make of that. The revealing of the concealed seems to be thematic in her fantasy. The door under the stairs is but one example. What am I grabbing here? We're fondling it, that's fine. Oh, footsteps. I don't quite see anything else to interact with here. The darkness of the shadowy corner unnerves you. You cannot explore here without some form of light. Okay, so we can't go there. How about the door? Let's look around first. Trash pile. And question marks. Okay. Can I grab these? Doesn't seem like I can grab anything here. Once she removed the panel and found the magical hidden passage, she was very specific about what she took. She found a magic book, a magic doll, a photo of her late grandpa, and magic glue. A slouching doll. Its material is rough and coarse. Search closet. Magic glue. All-purpose glue. We're cleaning. Eurasian steppe, shamanism, and the fusiform gyrus. An interdisciplinary study in sympathetic magic. A dissertation, Jake Hart. Papers crudely bound together form a book. The impetus of this research was the recognition of a particular pattern in fragments of documents related to magic and magico-religious practices. Numerous sources were drawn from commentaries on laws relating to the banning of sorcery and necromancy, compilations of folk charms relating to love spells, hagiographs of saints and their encounters with devils. The list spans many centuries and a great distance, from the Levant to the Khazar Khaganate, to the border of the modern nation-states of Russia and Kazakhstan today. From this paper trail arose a consistent account about a certain form of magic relating to the binding of demons to a sorcerer's will. A demon called the Heaven of Needles, or the Angel of Needles, was known to be kept best by shamanic keepers, or wards who suffer from face blindness, prosopagnosia. whether by birth or through developmental causes like a stroke or head injury. It was known to be extremely effective but terribly dangerous, so much so that it became outlawed several times and was generally a popular scapegoat relating to unexpected death. This nexus of magical religious meaning-making, sorcery regarding human-related desires, and the history and science of neurological disorders related to the fusiform gyrus is where the subject of this dissertation will reside. I will outline further and then analyze the historical sources I mentioned previously. Then I will go into the neurology of mystic and magical religious experiences. After that, I will detail my ongoing correspondence with a resident of the Ural Mountain region, who is an expert folklorist and keeper of traditions he claims have been passed down through extended family for generations. Fucking cool. Again. I think we needed something else, right? Oh. Let's clean the rest first. MNBHD? A photo of your late grandfather. Oh, no, I wanted to read it. Shit. It said read now. I interrupted to ask what she did with these magical, mysterious materials. Grow grandpa, she explained plainly. And then without missing a beat, she continued on with her story. Feeling this was a potent symbol, I stopped her again to ask what she meant. Somewhat puzzled, I did not understand immediately, she explained slowly. Grandpa lives in the cage in the other room. The cage behind the door. They grew people in the cage. Okay. I bet we are talking about this. A bunch of notes. A hastily written note. I've repeatedly called your homes to no avail, and so I am forced to leave this here for you all. I found William sitting in the corner of the enclosure area, seemingly severely concussed. Whiskers was gone, in none of its usual hiding places. I immediately suspected the worst. The project thus must be suspended for now. I am leaving up the usual mirrored coverings we use to keep the anthropoidic void sealed. I have done my best to lock up everything on such short notice. It is a hasty fix, but it will require some time to find a more permanent remedy. I'm honestly hoping you do not find this note, as I intend to lock the house down too. I intend to race off to you to retrieve your lockbox keys. Do not worry about Williams' key. It and the rest of his equipment is almost certainly deep within Whiskers now. I pray you do not enter this room, no matter how it may appear. William cannot be helped, and is only being kept alive as a means of continuing predation on the rest of us. I will say once again, no matter what state you may encounter William in, he cannot be helped. I have compassion for the young man, but I found on his person several photos of his late sister, which would imply certain risks he knew he was taking. Our extant research materials have now become possible liabilities, either criminal or professional in nature, so I have stashed them away. I believe I let you all know how I might do this if we were ever to experience an event such as this. I hope you all remember what I told you. So long then. Dr. H. A note on an experiment, 1 out of 4. 1. For the sake of university policy and the health of any future career you hope to have, you will abide by the non-disclosure contract you have signed. 2. Do not break the anthropoidic vacuum without my prior consultation and approval. 3. Any anthropoidic forms brought into the enclosure area must not be left unattended. When not in dormancy, the sample will attempt to take anthropoidic shells. Please see shell notes for more on that. This is sketching such a fucking insane situation and world. 4. The sample's exposure to some of our neuronal activity is unavoidable. However, the speed at which its desirous yield is produced can be dampened by several precautions regarding libidinal and emotional urges. Keep conversation not related to lab work to a minimum. If you begin to suspect you are developing attachments to your colleagues, contact me as soon as possible. Ritual behavior with the sample, trading, bargaining, will result in dismissal from the project. The precise mechanism of the exchange of symbols and gifts required for a requested desirous yield is not known, and even the anecdotal accounts of success are illegible. End in violent death. Ooh. Last one. Regarding growth cycles, every time Whiskers regenerates and leaves dormancy, it is to be logged as a new propagation. The sample's bodily existence cannot be illegible. A part cannot be cut from the whole, so there can only be one living propagation. Propagations are to be terminated after 5 weeks. Any further development puts us at risk. Termination procedures will be posted and followed with extreme care. With all of that out of the way, I want to welcome you to the project. I look forward to working with you, Dr. Hart. Let's enter. Beyond the door in the room the cage was hidden, concealed in another cloak of inward-facing mirrors. A hidden cage lined with mirrors. It is strange, almost poetic. The elaborate fantasy of self-reflection, concealment, captivity. Oh, this is no fantasy, Mr. Psychologist. This is real, maybe. What are we grabbing? These are like stitches or something. At the cage, she finally casts her spell. But it was confusing. She confided at first. She took the magic doll, the magic glue, and the photo of her grandpa. And she combined them, and she wished very hard. I can only assume in this fantasy that the next wish would come true. In what child's story would it not? Generic human figure and particular human representation. Doll and grandpa. Oh, glued together. A tangible symbol of intention and desire. She put grandpa in the cage, assuming that was part of the ritual. She was not clear on how it worked. The precise instructions she could glean from her grandfather's magic book was complicated by her reading comprehension. She wished with all her heart, and then she told me she waited a while for something, anything to happen. And after that time, she began to cry. I cried really hard, she said. I wanted Grandpa to be back. I wanted my parents to stop being so mean. And it hurt me. It hurt my wish for Grandpa to come back, for my parents to be different. I could feel it through the walls, and it felt me through the air. I asked her what exactly she meant. She could only repeat what she said. By this time, lunch was almost over. I said goodbye to Adrienne, and she left to rejoin her class. I was left to consider our conversation. I believe the storytelling strategy I have employed was not unfruitful, but I must probe deeper if I can. Although it can be sure of nothing, I interpret the impressions I get may begin to help me get an idea of the right questions to ask. Knowledge you acquired this week has given you access to certain topics or keywords you can discuss with Grandpa. You have gained the conversation topic wish. Consider discussing this when Grandpa emerges. You've also gained the following keyword. Shell. Week 2. Oh my. I met again with Adrienne in order to address her emotional outburst in the past few weeks. It is our second time meeting, and while it is standard practice to have multiple sessions with a troubled student. As I assemble, I report for the counseling department. I could not help but think, as we sat down in my office, that Adrienne already seemed to show a remarkable change in self-esteem and confidence, and perhaps my and Mrs. Richardson's estimation of her as emotionally disturbed was erroneous. The paralyzing shyness and withdrawn attitude Adrienne possessed last week was not entirely diminished, but she seemed to hold herself differently this week. However, this only lasted as long as our conversation pertained to initial introductory pleasantries. When I began once again asking about her parents, her feelings regarding her new school and her new home, she quickly lost what new confidence she had gathered up and withdrew again into herself. so once again I partook in some collaborative make-believe. But this time I was aided by the fact that I had managed to do some research into Adrienne's grandfather, and I had some insight into what she might actually be finding in the basement. Now, this may be overstepping my bounds come as a school counselor caseworker, but this was all in the service of making Adrienne comfortable and happy in this learning environment. In any case, I was able to dig up information regarding the grandfather by inquiring at the university in town. Not that I make a habit of sleuthing, but I have a suspicion the grandfather was a professor there, or at least some sort of researcher, due to the fact that the newly constructed laboratory on the campus I drive by every day bears his name in memorial. He was some sort of anthropologist, or linguist, or neuroscientist. I did not have to dig that deep before the scope of his work became dizzying, and I ran up against the limits of my undergraduate education. But back to the make-believe. What is your grandpa like? Is he a smart man? Not anymore, but I'm teaching him. So he's grown a good deal then. You have been feeding him well? Yeah, he's getting bigger, but he has a lot of room in his cage. He's still behind the bars? Yeah, well, he might be able to climb out eventually. There's this vent in the ceiling. Well, perhaps if he climbs out, I could meet him someday. Yeah, maybe, but he's not ready to leave. He can't take care of himself. I have to feed him, pick up after him. Ah, you store the food in your lunchbox? That's so nice of you to share. He can almost talk. You cannot speak with him? He doesn't. He doesn't have a mouth, sort of. But how do you feed him? He has a mouth on the outside, on his shell, but there's stuff that is his skin. I'm a little confused. Maybe you can go through a typical day with your grandpa? Okay. I asked her to explain how exactly she goes about growing her grandpa, and Adrienne began another tale. According to Adrienne, in the week that had passed, much had changed in the basement. Question marks, door. You should go see Grandpa first, okay? Examine. The hairy thing that was here before is gone. Uh-oh. Here we go. I can only wake Grandpa. It was scary at first, she said. The way he moved, the way the doll's skin covered him. I wanted to interject that this somehow seemed inappropriate, but I kept listening. When I look at him, she continued, when I think about him, he grows and moves. It's like he's growing of me, for me. So he's growing bigger now, I asked. Yes, she said, bigger every day. Okay. Oh my fucking god, this is so cool. This begins the actual growing part of growing your grandpa. Beneath the doll's burlap skin, the follicles knit together what resembles a proper person, your grandpa. You are in charge of its cognitive development and diet until it is able to sustain itself. Currently, you are observing Grandpa. Please click the arrow back button below for a brief tutorial of your duties as caretaker. Hey, Grandpa. Here we can see a variety of options regarding growing your grandpa. Highlighted in red are objectives related to feeding and teaching Grandpa. Important messages regarding Grandpa's recent activity will also appear here. You will need to find it food and learning material before you can move on to the next week. Some foods will make Grandpa happy, others merely content. Some food will make Grandpa disgusted to the point of nausea. Learning material is also scattered throughout the basement. Seek out vocabulary cards intended to help teach English and basic anthropoidic concept formation. The options highlighted in red are related to navigating around Grandpa's enclosure. The Go to Grandpa option will let you perform all actions directly related to Grandpa, feeding, teaching, observing, etc. Accessing the study corner will let you go over any documents you pick up as the week goes by. It's a good idea to learn about the work of the people who last occupied this space. Accessing the kitchen corner will let you search for food in the old refrigerator and prepare food for Grandpa, if need be. So, feed Grandpa and teach Grandpa. 2 acceptable foods. Seek out things to feed Grandpa, and 2 words taught. Find vocabulary cards to help Grandpa speak. Explore the basement. Okay. I guess go to the kitchen corner. Search upper fridge. Lettuce. It looks edible. Grandpa might like this. Okay. Lower fridge. Brown banana. It looks edible. Grandpa might like this. We've got 2 food now. So we need to combine soft fruit or vegetable with an unappealing item in order to create food. Okay, so we have to look around more. Let's explore. Okay, still gone. Hey, now we can look at things. Trash. Let's go to the trash pile. Oh, hello. Corroded battery. This isn't really food. Grandpa might eat it, however. Okay. Anything else? It's crazy how entertaining just grabbing shit and putting it in a trash can is. That's it, right? Yeah. Linguistics module. Hello. Teach Grandpa this word to read the notes of past educators. Okay. Module administrator will record details on opposite side. Okay. Bulbous growth. Something appears to be grown from the wall. You take a closer look. A pulsating sac. The slimy membrane that is its skin seems to contain something. It might be able to be opened with a blade. Okay, we're looking for a blade. Okay, we still can't go to the darkness. That makes sense. A cabinet. Slouching under the weight of rot and refuse. I feel like we might be finding a card here. Oh, what's that? Blueberries. It looks edible. Grandpa might like this. So I wonder, what would Grandpa like more? Fruit or vegetables? All clean. This space will not be dirty again until next week. Okay. So I'm thinking we do the learning stuff first, because then we get more notes, and more notes might mean more knowledge about what to feed him. Alright. We're cleaning. We're cleaning. Oh, that's a doll. That's another doll. Not sure if I like the dolls. An account of an acquisition. Therefore we began. He had to cover our face completely. An earthenware pot on the inside. As we stole glance at it, we could see the interior was inlaid with mirrors. The something gave it small pieces of dough, spoiled food, meat, keeping it content. See, you were learning about food, maybe. Yeah, dough, spoiled food, chicken feed. The keeper gestured towards the small bag where the food composted and told us to be careful not to feed it any meat. I asked it if the rotting food was enough to sustain it, how it might get nutrients from any of this. So, no meat. The keeper regarded me seriously and said it did not matter what it was fed. The act of feeding itself was what mattered. The act of feeding flesh is another act, however. He then gave me another series of grave warnings regarding not keeping any animal-derived foods near where I might be keeping it. Okay. All clean. This space will not be dirty again. Okay. Bottom drawer. A safe. I guess we're looking for at least 2 keys for this. Trash pile. Something about that painting looks strange. Hey. A folder full of radiographic images. Oh, what? I don't know. I don't know where to find my notes once I have them. Search trash pile, I guess. Keep searching. Oh, that looks like an unappealing item to me. Fiberglass insulation. That's an unappealing item, all right. Another trash pile. The waste here smells particularly strong. Oh, hello. A simple paper doll. This might be useful in the construction of magic symbols. Okay. Is that it? That's it, okay. We still need another card, I think. We only have one card, right? Yeah. Alright, back to Grandpa. Study corner? Oh, look, we can still look here as well. Look over documents. Ah, so these are where our documents are. Can we read these? I don't think we can. Okay, so there was nothing to read here. One thing I also missed was Grandpa's picture, right? No, it's not here. Then it's probably not important. Examine educational posters. This is garbage. Hey. A set of procedures regarding disposal/internment. Read now. The researcher will seal off the enclosure bars, ensuring minimal gas leak during later fumigation process, and then retrieve the burn barrel and place it near the enclosure. 2. Allow at least 48 hours of time where the current growth cycle experiences no human-related stimuli. Do not enter the enclosure area, nor any part of the basement. Ideally, you will not be on the grounds at all. After 48 hours, 2 researchers will enter the basement wearing their assigned mirror mask, mirror apron, and powered air purifying respirator. The researcher will use the vent system to fumigate the enclosed area. Wait 30 minutes and then use the fan system to ventilate the enclosure. Keep the fans running during steps 3 through 4. Re-enter the enclosure area wearing your assigned mirror masks and aprons. The organism may or may not be in complete dormancy. If it is not in full dormancy, be assured that its capacity to act against you will be greatly diminished. With your assigned power drills, quickly remove any enclosure bars needed to access the organism. Put them aside for later reinstallation. Put the organism into the burn barrel. Incinerate the organism thoroughly. Wait for any smoke to be properly cleared by the fan system. Turn off the fans. One researcher will retrieve the nucleus from the ash and place it in the mirror box. The other researcher will sift through the ash and place any other substantial remains in the biohazard bin in the room outside of the enclosure area. The bin is locked for safety purposes. The code is 323245. The researchers will fill out a termination form and leave it for Dr. Hart. So this code is probably important. Conversation topic, biohazard bin. Interesting. File cabinet 1. Man, it's so dirty here. Let's just clean it all up. Coins? Coins. More coins. What the fuck is that? All clean. This space will not be dirty again until next week. What the fuck are you? Cashews. Oh my god, I thought it was like intestines or something. It looks edible. Grandpa might like this. An account of an acquisition. It was said to pass from one family of steppe people to another, but pressed on its ultimate origin, legible somewhere to the south, coiled in a bowl covered in incantations, buried upside down by a graveyard, a common late antiquity demon trap. The keeper, an elderly man in failing health, was ready to expound on and on about the dangers of the organism, but when I asked more pointed questions about the history of the acquisition, I was given curt responses that had a way of circling back to vague warnings. Interesting. All clean. File cabinet 2. Let's see what we find in cabinet number 2. There we go, all clean. This space will not be dirty again. Vocabulary card, Grandpa. Vocabulary. Last one. Medical imaging device? What the fuck is that? First things first, though. First we clean, then we play. That's how Grandpa would have wanted it, were he not a husk of a creature, currently not able to speak. What are these things? What are you? Kind of weird, that's what you are. Okay, that's it. He removed the taped down fabric to reveal the cabinet's wooden bottom. Aha! A note regarding cleanup procedures. To my colleagues, I don't mean to be overly severe in tone, but Dr. Hart's work is very important, and the material we are working with is potentially very dangerous. I will be handing out a copy of this note as a reminder to everyone. I'm not trying to single any particular person out, but we all have misconceptions about the nature of this project, from time to time. With that out of the way, here are some things to keep in mind. The active growth must be thoroughly terminated via the contact procedures at the very least 4 weeks after dormancy is interrupted. It doesn't matter what you've done or haven't done regarding tests or procedures, or how much the anthropoidic vacuum has been disrupted. We are not ready to go beyond 4 weeks at this point. A step-by-step guide to termination has been posted by the enclosure wall. Please do not place the educational posters over this posting. We already found it. 2. Do not disrupt the anthropoidic vacuum without Dr. Hart's prior consultation and approval. In case of any emergency where the vacuum is disrupted, put on your equipment and begin the lockdown procedure. Make an extensive note of when and how the breach occurred. 3. If you find the habitat empty, page Dr. Hart immediately, but do not attempt to speak with anyone else. This thing can get very smart. I'm sure you're all well aware from the stories we heard on our acquisitions trip. The greatest caution should be used when dealing with a potential aggressive mimicry scenario. Please seek me out if you have any more questions. William, I think we heard about him in a previous note where he was lost somehow. Notations regarding sample exoskeletons. Research participants, please take note. Each growth from a cycle does not require a shell, but you may find the sample will often try and seize on something somewhat flexible it can grow into. along with any desirous yield it may generate, or else it would move from one shell to the next as it outgrows them. In the small amount of time I have spent with it in preparation, I have noticed it tends towards human forms. However, we should keep a tight lid on the anthropoidic seal in order to be cautious before we begin the experiment with exposing it long-term to anthropoid stimuli. Okay, so it's some kind of parasite that grows in things. Medical imaging device, okay. You slip the radiographic images you found into the machine's display. Ah. What's that, poop? Is that a little poop? Oh my god. Man, that's great. This is great. Such a natural, real, actual kind of spooky thing. Propagation 21, day 19 after dormancy. Nth vacuum broken, yes. Terminated at 21 days. Intriguing results with regard to the mimic hypothesis. A participant entered a sealed chamber adjacent to Whisker's growth cycle 21, which had been freed from the anthropomorphic vacuum, constructed quite economically from plastic and broken mirrors. The first propagation's original earthenware vacuum was shattered during the move-in. Between the two, there was a semi-opaque glass panel that allowed observation both ways. The human participant was asked to think of someone in the popular consciousness, fictional or no, and codicate on their image. Personality, face if possible, voice if possible, etc. Our participant chose Jesus of Nazareth, and with weekly repeated exposures to the participant's imaging's propagation, number 21 began forming what resembled an anthropoid Nazarene in the vault of its spines. Previous human-oriented tests have always bore out a result that Whiskers would form an anthropoid team member, be it me or Dr. Hart or Gerald, and we assumed it was merely mimicking one of us. Dr. Hart has always contended the desirous yield, or the anthropoid reproduction Whiskers creates when in contact with human beings, has always been based on the conception of relation to the person through someone else. With this framework, the desirous yield is not actually a replica of a person, or if it is only a replica of the fiction of a person generated in the mind of another. This desirous yield was not Jesus Christ, but the participant's image of Jesus, assembled from their religious upbringing, religious artwork, depictions in popular culture, etc. This radiograph was taken right before the destruction of the growth cycle, while Whiskers was rendered unconscious via fumigation. It seems like with every successive propagation, the stem cells in the organism work a little faster, but I'm not paranoid. It's technically deathless, yes, but we're burning up whatever knowledge it's gained when we incinerate it. I don't believe in magic just yet. Oh my god, there's so much fucking information here. Oh my god. So this was number 21, which I think that's Whiskers, maybe the most recent one. Let's look at number 2. Day 0 after dormancy. Termination at 6 days. We have taken to calling it Whiskers, though of course some have interpreted it as hair or needles or quills, but Whiskers is more accurate, as the needles are really more like supersensory follicles or spines. The nerve nets distributed throughout the morphology of these spines resemble those of genus Hydra, but have myelin sheaths that are functionally the same as vertebrae. As we can see in the X-ray, each spine is laden with dense optical arrangements, similar to compound eyes. The Hydra connection is assuredly worth investigating with regard to the organism's capacity for regeneration and anecdotal deathlessness. It certainly is a robust enough creature to inspire a marvel that is not untinged with fear. So this is number 14. I think these are the amount of cycles they have creating this creature, like killing it and growing it again. Termination at 16 days, and this is day 14. Exposure to mammalian forms, part of a series of zoomorphic influences, led to further understanding of the propagation's ability to simulate the somatic stem cells that constitute fully developed animals. I write simulate in the previous statement because examining the tissue of each propagation leads me to believe its amazing capacity for accelerated growth of vastly different forms comes from its cell-level mutability. And yet at no time does it function as the thing it becomes, except in the sense that it mimics it. That is to say, when Whiskers is removed from dormancy and replicates a rabbit's morphology, it is not seeing from the rabbit's eyes, nor smelling from the rabbit's nose, but pretending that it does and doing a very good job of it. And this is some The Thing type shit here. This is number 5, 10 days after dormancy, and it was terminated at 12. This radiograph was taken at or around growth cycle number 4. The strange thing about it was that the subject of the image was found nowhere near the enclosure. It's almost like a piece of Whiskers fell off and scurried into the corner. I feel like we've learned a lot since then, but at the time I remember speaking about the morphology being weird, not really even resembling any extent zoomorphic structure, besides maybe a cuttlefish. Then I happened to open the thing up. Inside were all these little dead amoeba-like things, but they all sort of looked like they had faces that were just barely there. After I took the radiograph, I gathered it up and went to go through it in the biohazard bin. As I walked by the bars of the enclosure, I could hear Whiskers suddenly going wild, flopping around and grunting excitedly. Could it have smelled the cuttlefish thing? Would it eat its own production? I guess it's technically flesh. This is beyond the scope of the project, but it could be that without the stimulus of an active brain, or even more specifically, a healthy and active brain capable of face recognition and theory of mind, Whiskers begins to pull whatever it can from the limited data available to it. Again, this is not our focus at this time, but I left a note for Dr. Hart just in case he wanted to take a look. Is that a face? Is that what we're looking at? Okay. Alright, let's go to Grandpa now. Yeah, to learn him. Teach him. Look at that. Look at fucking that. Observe. You examine Grandpa, noting its movements, respiration, and general mood. Grandpa seems sort of sluggish and bored. You get the feeling it may be more content and readily cooperative once fed and taught a word or two. Let's teach him first. Hello. Would you like to view the tutorial before you start? Yes. This brief tutorial will go over teaching Grandpa pronunciation and vocalization. The vocabulary word you picked will appear at the top left corner. In the bottom right corner will be a pentagon that is divided up into 8 sections. A section of the pentagon will be highlighted briefly. A notification sound will play, and soon another section will be highlighted. You will control a small round icon that sits above the pentagon by using your mouse. The ball is constrained to the limits of the pentagon. The goal is to keep your icon over the highlighted area and move it as the area changes section around the pentagon. When you hold left click above the correct highlighted area, the icon will start to vibrate along with the simulated vocal cords, and the current letter of your word will begin to turn red. Keep holding over the highlighted section and adjust your icon as it changes place. Soon the letter will become fully red. I think I get it. After every letter becomes red, Grandpa will proudly pronounce the word to you, and it will be considered learned. Teaching Grandpa these words will accelerate its cognitive development and lead to further breakthroughs in general intelligence. Alright, let's teach Grandpa the word hello. This is so fucking cool. How fucking creative is this? Jesus. You approach the small window. Oh my god. Okay. Shit. I don't know if we can actually mess this up. It looks like we can't. It's a bit quicker than I expected. Strange membranes. Okay, that doesn't quite sound like hello, but I like it. Deep within Grandpa, strange membranes faunate confidently. Having completed the lesson, you take a look at the back of the vocabulary module card and the notes there written by administrators of the past. Hello, part of vocabulary and vocalization module A2, conversational basics. General pronunciation comments, sloppy articulation, module comments, see below. We are already encountering some difficulty as Whiskers' subjectivity is so much determined by a diverse and dynamic array of influences. It attempts to mimic the thoughts and desires it passively intercepts, and these imitations go on to structure the basics of its identity. Only later in Whiskers' growth cycle does it begin to form an identity, or identities, that are coherent and capable of resembling a sane, rational human being when engaged in conversation. One must imagine how hard it would be to converse with someone who is not yet oriented in one particular way towards who or how they are, because they might have 20 different honest answers to those questions, all of them mixed and muddled together. Because of this, we have started with the basics of conversation: greetings, partings, identifying one another, forming questions, etc., etc. It is fortunate Whiskers' current growth, number 19 I believe, has developed a mostly accurate human mouth simulation. Hello was a bit of a challenge in the previous growth, as it had failed to develop an adequate organ to act as a human tongue. You step away from the bars and store the module card at the document table. God damn. Alright, let's do some variation. Let's go to the kitchen first. Let's prepare some food. So I'm feeling... Wait, can I only choose banana here? Fiberglass insulation. Conceal. What? The insulation is concealed in the browning banana flesh. We have a bunch of stuff. We had so much. Well, let's feed him this first. Back to Grandpa. Let's observe first. Examine Grandpa. Noting his movements, yes. Grandpa seems sort of sluggish, yeah. Feed Grandpa. Would you like to view the tutorial before you start? Yes. You'll not be prompted again. This brief tutorial will go over the basics of feeding Grandpa, via induction of your unprotected insula. Grandpa has simulated the production of tooth enamel to mimic a human mouth. It will need to be fed through this in order to properly learn and grow. First, you will need to select an item from the lunchbox. Click on the lunchbox in the bottom right corner. The contents of the lunchbox will be displayed. Nice food, bad food, okay. Select an item from the lunchbox. Doing so will fill your hand with this item. Note that any food can be put back into the lunchbox by clicking on lunchbox with a full hand. Before Grandpa can be fed, it must judge the food by smell. Hover your hand above Grandpa's olfactory bulbs, and if Grandpa is pleased, it will allow you to feed it. Most foods Grandpa will accept. However, getting Grandpa to consume other things requires some culinary deception. When Grandpa is willing to be fed, hover your hand over its mouth and click. Grandpa will then consume the food. Good luck on feeding Grandpa. Okay, let's do it. You approach a small window. Fuck! That's so quick! If Grandpa is enticed by the smell, click on Grandpa's mouth to feed it. Okay. Left of its mouth. Here are his nostrils, apparently. Conceal insulation. Oh. Oh, yeah. Although quickly consumed, the meal seems to be causing some indigestion. And when the sun alerts, Grandpa empties its stomach onto the floor. The content pulled together in front of the cage. Wait, did I... Did I mess it up? What did I mess up? Grandpa finds this palatable. The meal appears to have been sufficient. I'm gonna... You step away from the window set in the bars, and Grandpa silently slides back to its corner. So... We're just taught to find acceptable foods eaten. So why are we trying to feed it insulation wool if that doesn't help it? Battery. We don't have anything to put with the battery. Okay, fine. Appealing food it is. But first, let's teach him another word. Oh, examine stomach contents. Key. Still somewhat wet. This might help you explore more of the basement. I think this is... And I'm gonna check it right now. I think in the bottom drawer? Yes. You try to safe lock with the key you found. And it pops open. I remembered. I thought I had 2 locks, though. A photo of your mother as a young woman. Recognition of this face kicks off a cascade of emotion and moaning deep within your psyche. Meaning, not moaning. That's it, right? That's interesting. So that probably has some effect on Grandpa because it's happening in my brain. Okay, go to Grandpa. Observe. Same. Attempt to communicate. No response. All right. Feed Grandpa. Let's feed him something else that is palatable. Indifferent to the smell. Indifferent. Okay, we want better than indifferent, right? How about some fucking lettuce? By its neutral reaction, this will sate its hunger. Okay, well, we've only got mediocre at best today. Yes. So we are done feeding Grandpa. Step away from the window. Sit in the bars. Grandpa grunts in appreciation and locomotes towards its favorite corner. So now we teach him one more word. Still sluggish. So it remains the same until you complete this, it looks like. Teach, Grandpa. Let's teach him his own name. Yes, yes. Does the sound change based on what I do or not? Can't quite tell. Because it's such a weird-ass sound. It's a long word, Grandpa, but you got this. You got this, Grandpa. I mean, kinda. And now we get a note. Grandpa, part of vocabulary and vocalization module E81, family. General pronunciation comments, usual trouble with articulation, voice thin, raspy, possibly underdeveloped larynx. Module comments, see below. We've done several sessions of what we are calling familial relation simulation. I and a co-researcher sit in the chairs opposite the enclosure. We are wearing the usual masks. And we begin to act out a scene, mostly through improvisation, that might roughly resemble a kitchen table conversation between an immediate family. Repeated trials would reveal, although our simulated conversation was purposefully vague and unspecific regarding persons and identities, we would only address each other as brother, father, sister, etc. It soon became apparent the encoded information and associations we unconsciously drew on upon when hearing and speaking these words was being picked up on by Whiskers and its psi-type field of reception interpretation of brain-mind events semantic content. My co-researcher William noticed this in a simulation where Whiskers was given a role as a sister and he as a brother. I was the father. Whiskers began responding to certain prompts with unusual specificity, as well as a general pattern and timbre of speech that continued with unusual consistency. As soon as the simulation ended, we left the enclosure area. William let me know what Whiskers was almost certainly drawing from encoded memories of his late sister, mapping out exactly what regions and centers of neural activity are intercepted by the psi-type field. Will take extensive neuroimaging that we do not have at this site. Currently, we only have less precise portable equipment. However, our experiences so far are eerily in line with folk knowledge and folk explanations regarding the being's access to desires, and we can begin to infer it has access to certain portions of the limbic system and the ventral temporal cortex. Alright, that was so fucking cool, and I can't wait to finish it all with you guys, but for now, I'm going to leave you with this. Check out James. I will leave his details in the description down below. Become his patron, because we want more of this stuff. And the more patrons he gets, the less he has to worry about making money, and the more he can worry about making games. Anyway, we'll continue this next week. Until then, please check out my Twitch, and goodbye.